Today we're making a scuffed metal, and we'll probably also throw in a scuffed plastic. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a cube. We're just going to set it right here in the middle of our scene, and we'll rotate it just by about 45 degrees. And we'll rotate it diagonally as well. And I'm going to scale it down and take my camera and I'm going to just move it up. This is not required for you to do. Just doing it for myself. I'm going to come here. I'm going to set this to cycles. Now, these materials I am making also work in Eevee, but I digress. Let's start with clearing up some of our space here. So I'm going to turn off a lot of these notations and screen little icons, and then I'm going to come here and we're going to take this to our shader editor. I'm also going to hit N, and that's going to hide that menu because it's not needed. And on this cube, we do not have any material added to it. There is no material. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click Add New Material, and we're going to name this Scuffed Metal. Now, I would suggest that you go into Preferences under Edit, and you add the Node Wrangler add-on, and you just enable that. I have that enabled. So I'm going to click on my principled BSDF, and I'm going to hit Control T, just like that. Now, I'm actually going to be taking this directly into the roughness and moving this over because I'm also going to add in a color ramp. So let's get that going here. Shift A, start typing, color ramp. It's right there, converter. Plug that in. Now, the image that I'm using here for this is going to be free on texturelabs.org. If you go to texturelabs.org, we're going to go into where I keep my textures. And we are grabbing Grunge 241. So I can actually search up here, Grunge 241, right here, Texture Labs, Grunge. Click on that. I'm going to open that image. And then I'm also going to click Alt-Shift-click on this color ramp, and it's going to show me what that looks like. What does that look like going right into the material output? So it's just bypassing. And what I want is I want this to be pretty rough. So I'm actually going to take this pretty far down. The white pretty far down. And then I'm also going to come into this black section because I don't really want anything to be too shiny here. I'm probably going to take this up to about a medium gray. And what that's doing is it is creating a roughness on our cube here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the metallic all the way up because we want our cube to be metallic. And nothing in life, nothing in reality is actually this sharp with these perfect edges. So we're also going to come here and throw on a quick bevel modifier and just take that down a little bit. But first, let me make sure that this cube scale is set. Now I'm going to come here. I'm going to just drag this down just a little bit and something like right about 0.01. And then we're going to add like 5 or 6 segments to that bevel modifier. What that's doing is just going to be able to catch some highlights on some of these edges. And if I zoom out a little bit, let me double check that my camera is not locked to view. I'm going to turn this on just so I can see this. And we're going to just bring this back right above. View our camera. This is going to give us a nice look at what we've done here. But I want to add in more detail here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm starting to see that we did not shade this smooth. So I'm going to do a quick shade smooth so that those bevels don't have little notches to them, little faces to them. I want them to be pretty nice and smooth. So I'll do that real quick. And let's go back to our camera just so we have this thing in view. And what I want to do is I want to build another node structure here. So I'm going to be adding in another principled BSDF, and we're going to be adding bump to this. So I am going to start by taking this principled BSDF and going Shift D. And on that same principled BSDF, that new one that we just made, I'm going to use the same Node Wrangler hotkey, which is Control T, just to get that texture coordinates and mapping node added. So we're going to change this image, but first we're going to do the same thing that we did earlier, and we're going to add in a color ramp, and we're going to drag this out, and we're going to go a bump height right there. And we'll give ourselves a little bit more room. Plug this right into the normal. This is not going to do anything at the moment. It's not even plugged into our material output, but since we're working on it, we can use the hotkey to preview something, plug it directly into our material output. That is Control Shift or Command Shift, and you click import the image that we need. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to open the image. We're going to go down to textures. This is where I keep all of my textures, and we're going to search Grunge 288. This is the one that you can also, another one you can also get from Texture Labs. This is free on texturelabs.org. I cannot promote that website enough. Here it is, Texture Labs Grunge 288. Let's open the image. And as you can see, it has already started adding some bump to our cube. Now, this bump is pretend. It is just a trick of the light. This is not actually displacing your cube in any way. And let's change the color ramp here to kind of match the previous one. What we're going to do is I'm going to take this down, and we can Control Shift on the color ramp to see what we're doing here. And I want to take this up a little bit as well. We don't need it to be quite as dark as black. That don't need it that dark to get the desired effect. Also, another thing that we're going to do here is we're going to take the strength and the distance on this down a lot. So I like to have my distance. This is just something I like to do, but this is completely subjective. So if you're looking for a different look than what I'm achieving here, by all means, change these numbers. Do what looks best to you. I like to, on my distance in my bump node, go 0.02. And that just takes it down a lot. And then I also take this strength down quite a bit. So I like my strength to be, at around 0.1 or 0.3. Between 0.1 and 0.3. I don't want it to be too gnarly. Now, another thing I like to do when I'm adding scratches, and since I'm going to mask the scratches to only be around the edge of my object, I don't mind zooming out of the texture that I'm in. So we can shift on this, we can shift Control click on this color ramp just so we're seeing our image. And I like to take the scale to about 4.5. And what that's going to do is, even though we're seeing a lot of tiling, like this looks the same as that, looks the same as that, you're not going to notice that really while we have our mask and the whole entire look done. So once the material is completely done, you're not going to really notice that tiling as much. Now that that is set up, we need to mix these two materials together. So we have our scratches and we have our scuff marks. And what we need to do now is connect these two. Now I want the roughness on this one to match the roughness, match the roughness of this one. So we can just take this color and we can just plug it right into the roughness. Now when we're looking at this, already looks the same. But I want this top one to only show up around the edges. So we're going to have to mix these together, and we can do that with a mix shader. The mix shader bottom BSDF is going to go into the bottom of the mix shader, and the top one is going into the top. And this we can Control Shift click on. It will automatically connect it to our material output. And now we have the scratches and the roughness all mixed together in one. Let's mask those scratches to only be near the edge. Well, it's going to be with the factor. So the factor is what's telling this mix shader how much of one or the other BSDF is shown in the final material out. Let's do this. Let's go factor out. We're going to take this into a color ramp. Then we're going to take this into an ambient occlusion node. And we actually want the color of the ambient occlusion. And this we are going to take into another color ramp. There we go, color ramp. And this is going to be a noise texture. Seems a little convoluted, but it will make sense here as we go through these. So to start things off with, let's look at this color ramp and the noise texture and solo those out. Control Shift on the color ramp, and we can see what we've got going on here. Now, I have written down the numbers that I thought worked the best, and I think I'm going to just plug those in so it's easier for everyone else. So at top, we have 3.650. 3.650. For detail, I have 3.90. 3.90. And everything else pretty much just stays exactly the same, exactly how it is. Now, this color ramp, I do have it set to B spline, and I do have the black moved up quite a bit because I want this to have a lot of black and white mixture going on. From there, that is being plugged into our ambient occlusion node. So let's shift control click on our ambient occlusion node, the color aspect of that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go inside and local only. And what this is going to do is going to tell us that we're checking for faces that are close to each other, and where they meet, we're going to kind of have the color of that, a mask that we can use to tell us where one of these and the other are allowed to show up. Is actually, you know what? This isn't supposed to go into color. This is supposed to go into distance. There we go. Now you can see where the mask is happening. Don't know why it went into color. So we have noise texture into a color ramp to crush it down a little bit. From there, we have it going into the distance of an ambient occlusion node. And if we drop these samples down to about 9, you can see that it gets a little bit more visible. Now from there, we can come to this color ramp right here. And this color ramp, we're also going to move the black up quite a bit. Something about there. So what this is telling us is we want the scratches to only show up where there is black here. That is all we want to do. See this mask to tell us where those scratches should be allowed to be. Now, one thing I am noticing is these scratches seem to be protruding out in some areas instead of dipping in, which is what scratches should do. So you can always mess around with your bump node over here, and you can invert it if you think that that will look better, which here it does. So now it looks like there are gouges into the metal instead of poking out of the metal, which is what we're looking for. And this is only on the edges. And if we want to pull those back, there's too many scratches there. All we have to do is come to this color ramp and just drag this back. And those scratches start to fade away. And you can even bring the white down a little bit, and those scratches can completely go away. So it really is completely controllable and completely manipulative in how you want your material to look. The other nice thing about this, the bonus, is you have any material that you want to have this type of scuffing and scratches on it. You can just mess with the BSDFs here, the principled BSDFs, and change the base material. So if we take the metallic down on both of these and we change the color to, let's go with a black color because that's simple. We'll just bring it down to black. And then we take this these roughness that we have here. So the roughness, let's say we want it even more rough than it already is. So let's bring that white down, go back to this mix shader, and now we have a plasticky, scuffed plasticky material. And we can even come into this white and we could say, you know what, we don't want it perfectly rough, right? So let's just drag this down a little bit so it's a light gray. And that will allow a little bit more reflection to happen. But now you have a great plastic material for any gun handle or any kind of, even a keyboard this would work well on because it's something that gets used and touched a lot. So it would have a lot of wear and tear on it. Phone cases, things like that. You can also take the saturation up, take the lightness up on this. Maybe we want it to be a orange plastic. Well, let's bring the lightness up on that so it's a nice orange plastic. But the other material does not have that color right now. So let's go to the hex code, Command copy, come over to the top, Command V, paste that texture, that color in, and now you have that same color across your texture, and it's plastic, and you're like, oh, I want to bring the scratches back in. Cool, let's drag this up, let's drag this back. Now you're going to get those scratches on the edges of your plastic complete right there for you. I do have 12 materials that are drag and drop capable. They're up on my Gumroad right now, and it's super cheap. It helps support the channel. It helps me continue to make these and spend more time learning how to make stuff simply and teach you guys how to do it as well. So I really appreciate you guys. But that is how I make materials here in Blender. Are you looking for better materials to use in Blender? Check this out. I've created some amazing materials that you can drag and drop right into your projects, taking your scenes and models to the next level with these insanely detailed materials. This sale ends soon. Check it out.